Laura Kunsberg, BBC News. Thank you, Prime Minister. You've been straining in the last couple of years to keep all the promises that you have made, whether to Brexiteers, to former Remainers, to Northern Ireland, or indeed to business. Ultimately, you are going to have to disappoint someone. Who is it going to be?
Yeah. What we have done as a government is put forward a set of proposals that deliver on the vote of the British people, that would ensure that we would end free movement, end the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice, end sending vast amounts of money to the European Union every year, come out of the common agricultural policy, out of the common fisheries policy, but also protect jobs and livelihoods and protect the integrity of the Union of the United Kingdom. That's a proposal that I believe is good for the UK, but also would be good for the European Union. Tom?
Thank you, Prime Minister. Tom Newton-Dunn from The Sun. In the last 24 hours or so, and if you don't mind me being a little blunt about this, you've...
Never known you be blunt before, Tom.
You've angered Brexiteers with the transition extension suggestion. You've angered Remainers by talking about the meaningful vote not being amendable. You appear to have disappointed EU leaders by not bringing any fresh concrete proposals to the table, and they even went for a beer without you last night. What, in your view, is going wrong?
These are always going to be tough negotiations, and they were always going to get tougher before we got to the closing stages of the negotiations. And yes, there are some difficult issues that we are still working through. Crucial among those is this issue about the Northern Ireland backstop and ensuring that we can provide for a solution which is not the solution that was produced by the European Commission initially, which would have effectively carved Northern Ireland away from the rest of the United Kingdom. That's unacceptable to the UK government. I believe it would be unacceptable to any UK government. So on that issue, further solutions have been put forward. But what we want to do is to work to get through that so that we can actually get to the deal that I believe will be good for the British people. That's what we're working through these tough negotiations for, delivering on the vote of the British people and doing it in a way which protects jobs, protects our union, is good for the UK, but I believe will also be good for the EU as well. James.
Prime Minister, with every compromise you make at these talks, the transition extension just being the latest example, doesn't it become less and less likely that this deal, that your party will ever be able to get behind this deal?
Well, first of all, let me address this issue that you've raised about the potential extension, as you recall, to the transition or the implementation period. This is an idea that has been around before. I've been asked about it in the potential for an extension in the House of Commons previously. I've always been very clear that we negotiated an implementation period with the EU, and we negotiated that that implementation period would end at the end of December 2020. What has now emerged is the idea that an option to extend the implementation period could be a further solution to this issue of the backstop in Northern Ireland. What we are not doing, we are not standing here proposing an extension to the implementation period. What we are doing is working to ensure we have a solution to the backstop issue in Northern Ireland that enables us to, which is currently a blockage to completing the deal, that enables us to get on with completing a deal that delivers on the vote of the British people and is good for the future of the UK. Heather, I think. Is Heather? Yes, sorry. I knew I'd seen one side.
Hello. EU leaders don't have a meeting in the diary for November, the European Council for November. The next one scheduled is December. If that turns out to be the meeting at which a deal is done or is signed, is there still time to get it ratified in Parliament, or alternatively, if there isn't a deal at that point, to get Whitehall ready for a no deal in March?
Well, we are all working, we're intensifying the work on these issues that remain, and we're very clear. I mean, what I've had from leaders around the table over the last hours that I have been, since I arrived here in Brussels yesterday, is a very real sense that people want that deal to be done. And I think if you look at some of the comments that have been made, Chancellor Merkel said where there's a will, there's normally a way. Jean-Claude Juncker said let's focus on the large areas of of agreement, and it will be done. So there's a real sense. So what we're doing is working to ensure that we can do this deal within that reasonable timetable. I'm very aware of the legislative requirements we have in the House of Commons and the period of time that will take. Jason.
Thank you. Jason Gross from the Daily Mail. Prime Minister, the Irish Europe Minister has said that you now accept, you've told her that you accept that the final backstop can't be time limited. Is that right? And closer to home, Anjem Choudary is due to be released imminently. The security services say he's still a threat to the public. Are you happy to see him on the streets again?
Well, first of all, on the first point, if I sort of take a step back and explain what the backstop is, what it is there intended to be there for. It's if there is a gap between the end of the implementation period, which, as I said, has been set at December 2020, and the introduction of the future relationship. If there is a period of months, and I think we would only be talking about a matter of months when there is that gap, it's ensuring that there is no return to a hard border between Northern Ireland and Ireland during that time, because we believe that the future relationship will resolve the issue of the border between Northern Ireland and Ireland, and it's that future relationship we want to see in place. And indeed, nobody actually wants the backstop to have to be used. What we want is to ensure that the future relationship dealing with the issue of the Northern Irish border comes into place at the end of the implementation period, which, as I've said, we had negotiated that period through to the end of December 2020. On the question of Anjem Choudary, obviously, he's an extremist preacher. He pledged his allegiance to Daesh. He was convicted of inviting support for them. But if and when any terrorist offender is released, well-rehearsed plans are put in place to keep the public safe. And the police, the prison, the probation service and other agencies have a range of powers available to them. They also have significant experience in dealing with such offenders. And this includes the setting of strict licence conditions, such as restrictions on movement and internet access, stringent curfews, and the breach of which could result in immediate recall to prison. Can I ask if there is somebody here from Der Spiegel?
Thanks, Prime Minister. There doesn't seem to be a majority in the House of Commons for any kind of conceivable deal. So what do you tell your EU partners to take away their fears of the deal being rejected in Parliament? And the second one, if I may, looking back at the negotiations so far, would you say that you have underestimated the EU's unity? And if the answer is yes, how will you change your approach in the final stage of the talks? Thank you.
First of all, and I think this will be the last question, but first of all, in relation to the unity of the 27, right at the very beginning of this process, I said we want the EU to remain strong. It is actually in the interests of the UK, as the near neighbours of the 27, what will be the 27 remaining states of the European Union, for the European Union to remain strong. Now, you asked about the question of the deal and taking that deal back to Parliament. I am confident that we can achieve that good deal, and that when I take that deal back to Parliament, I think members of Parliament I will be asking members of Parliament first to recall that we're delivering on a vote of the British people. We gave the British people that choice. They voted to leave the EU. We will be delivering on that vote. And I'd also ask them to think about the importance of protecting jobs and livelihoods in the UK, protecting our security in the UK, and protecting the Union of the United Kingdom. I think those will all be issues that the members of Parliament will want to consider when they're looking at a deal. And as I say, I believe a good deal for the UK will be one that does deliver on the vote of the British people and does all those things. It protects jobs, it protects our security, and protects the Union of the United Kingdom. Thank you.